Hello guys, I'm back again with yet another video. So as you can see behind me, I'm pretty sure you guys know what I'm doing today, right? Well, I've got two pie charts. So obviously I'm going to be talking to you guys about task 1 of writing module, and my focus today is going to be on pie charts. Well, there are numerous occasions when pie charts have been asked on the real exam, and I'm pretty sure if you are sitting for IELTS, you might be one of the students who faces these challenges. So in today's video, I'm going to teach you how to solve pie charts in about 15 minutes. Most of the students spend too much time on task 1 and end up getting very low score. When you spend too much time on task 1, the first problem is you don't get enough time for task 2, so which means you will not be getting good scores. So let's see how it can be done in about 15 minutes. So let's quickly go through what things are written here first. The question itself tells us the pie charts show the annual spendings done by a Chinese company in 2010 along with predictions for 2020. So you've got two different dates, 2010 and then 2020. What it means is I will be needing to use two different types of language. When I talk about this, I will be using past tense, and when I talk about this, I'm going to take help of words like estimated, projected, predicted, expected, assumed, and these kind of words. So the second thing I want you to look at are the figures given to us. So rent, tax, security, cleaning, salary. So here again, the same elements have been mentioned. Obviously, the values have changed a bit. And then our job is to summarize this information in about 150 words by making sure that we talk about the main features and we compare wherever possible. So that is the primary job that students are asked to do in task 1. So let me quickly tell you what kind of words I'm going to use to solve this. I'm going to use former, latter. I'm going to use accounted for. I will be using even though. I'll be using exponential to show the degree of growth. I'll be using significant once again for the same purpose. I will also be using joiners like although, and I will also be using words like or connectives like in addition, on the other hand, and stuff. So before you guys begin, I suggest spending at least 5 minutes planning before you even write down a single word. Well, many of you might think, isn't that too much? But I personally believe that if you spend good time planning, you will make it up later on. So if you have a concrete plan ready for your writing task 1, you will not need more than 10 minutes to actually write. So which gives you enough time to even recheck what you have written. So let's see what planning I have done so that I can explain it to you and then you guys can follow the same. So let's have a look. So this is the plan that I prepared. So it's going to take you some time, I know that, but do start it right away. So if you start planning from now on, in the upcoming days, it will get faster. You might need longer time to plan at first, but as you keep practicing the skill, it will get much faster. So let's begin. We are going to need an introduction, quite obvious, 2 paragraphs in the body section, and then one overview to wrap things up. So before we talk about this, I want to quickly talk about percentage. Whenever you see this sign, always remember this word off. So percentage is always attached with off. So 20% of what? Of something bigger, right? So in this particular case, 20% of the annual spending. So once you have this clear in your brain, it is easier for you to be making sentences. So let's begin by talking about introduction. So as I have mentioned in my last video, it's all about paraphrasing. So if you know a couple of synonyms, that definitely helps. If you don't, make sure you change the structure of the sentence, and that should be all you need for the introduction. So let's quickly have a look. The question tells us the pie charts. So since it's obvious that there are pie charts, maybe I can add 2 in between somewhere. Show, I can definitely change this to maybe illustrates or demonstrate. Then I've got annual spending. So annual obviously means yearly, quite obvious, right? Spendings can be replaced with word like expenditure. And let's move on, done by a Chinese school, so or a Chinese company. So I could simply say of a Chinese company, or I could say of a company in China. So remember, all I'm trying to do is paraphrase. In 2010, along with predictions. So for predictions, I've got plenty of options here. I'm going to replace it with something else. For 2020, can stay as it is. So let's try to construct one introduction very quickly. The 2 pie charts illustrate the yearly expenditure in 2010 as well as predictions. So I'm going to replace it with projections for 2020 of a company in China. So once you have done that, your introduction is ready. So remember what we did here. We answered all the questions, and on top of that we paraphrased and we used a couple of synonyms. So that should do the job. So let's move on and talk about the body sections and the overview. So before we talk about the body section, let's quickly jump to the overview. That is what I want to plan before I plan my body section. So for overview, remember in my last video I mentioned about trends and counter trends. So if you just talk about one particular trend, that is not enough to get you above 7. You have to have 2 trends in your overview and try to create a comparative language. So in this particular case, let's have a look at the diagram first. So rent 15 to 11. So can I say rent has decreasing trend? Of course. Tax 28 to 22. So once again a decreasing trend. Security 15 to 9. So yet another decreasing trend. And then I've got cleaning, which has 2, and then it increases to 8. So which is an increasing trend. And then salary from 40 it increases to 50. So once again another increasing trend. So these kind of information can be utilized to talk about or to create your overview. So let's have a quick look. So I'm going to say 1, 2, and 3 of the elements have decreasing trend, whereas the remaining 2 have an increasing trend. So I have got here, so this might not actually be correct. So rent, taxes, and something else has decreased, that is security. So 3 of the elements have a decreasing trend, the rest have an increasing trend. So that could be your overview. And in addition, I want to add salary here. And the main reason behind that is it is quite obvious that salary has dominated the expenditure in both of the years. So which means if you don't include that, you will be avoiding something really significant. So please make sure you do include that in your overview. So now let's move on and talk about the body section. So in the first paragraph, I've got 2 things. The highest, which is salary, and then the lowest, which is cleaning. So why did I put these 2 specific items here? It's because of one very simple reason. I can throw in a nice connective right in the middle. So remember, when I talked about marking criteria of IELTS in my other video, I did mention about coherence and cohesion. So to get good marks over there, you will need some connectives in right places. So this is a beautiful place for me to add a connective on the other hand, because one, I'm talking about the highest, and on the other half, I'm going to talk about the lowest. So 2 opposite trends, and then I can squeeze in a connective like this in between. So it can also be replaced by another connective on the contrary. So learn some of these connectives that show differences, and at the same time learn some of the connectives that show similarities. So those could be similarly, likewise, in the similar manner, and stuff like that. So we are going to talk about salary. We are going to say it is the highest In both the years, it started at 40 and then increased by 10 to become half of the total expenditure. In the other part of the sentence, I'm going to talk about cleaning. I'm going to use a joiner, even though. So even though an increment of 6% was seen on cleaning, it still is expected to remain the lowest overhead, which means it is still expected that it will remain at the bottom. So even though is going to be a big help here because I want to create a sentence which has two clauses. Okay, moving on to the other paragraph, I want to talk about R equals S equals 15%. So what does it mean? So let's have a quick look. Rent 15% and then security 15% again. So I'm going to say rent and security, both of them had a figure of 15%. Okay, then I'm going to use something called former and latter. So if you have a look here, I've got these two words here. These words make your sentences really strong. So let me see here, where can I fit in? So, sorry, I'm going to talk about rent and then I'm going to talk about security. So both of them have a figure of 15% each. And then I'm going to say the former, after a decline of 4%, is expected to reach so and so by 2020. So former means the first one that I'm talking about, and latter means the second one that I'm talking about. So former is the element that comes at first, and latter is the one that comes at second. So by using this structure, I'm going to explain this, and then in another sentence, I can use a connective like in addition. So in addition, I'm going to talk about taxes being the second highest. So if you can notice from the diagram, what is the second highest here? Tax. And here, so it's taxes again, right? So I'm going to talk about it as the second highest. So I'm going to say, although a drop has been noticed, it is still expected to remain the second highest expenditure in both the years. So that way I'm going to give them a strong comparison. I'm also making sure that I'm reporting main features, and at the same time I'm not doing a mechanical writing. Remember, I spoke about mechanical writing in the last video. If you guys have not watched that video, make sure you stay tuned to this video, and at the end of this video I'll provide you a link to go back to that video. So mechanical writing means if you start copying everything as they are given to you in the diagram. If you have noticed here, for example, this number 10% was never given in the diagram. Half, never mentioned. They mentioned 50%, I changed that to half. So 6%, never mentioned in the diagram. These numbers were mentioned. So 4 and 6, once again, not mentioned in the diagram. So 28 was mentioned, but 6 not mentioned. So by doing this kind of combination, I'm creating a few numbers on my own, and then I'm using a few numbers that were already given to me in the question. So I'm creating a balance to stay away from being called as a mechanical writer. Okay, so I'm pretty sure you have understood the overview. If you have not understood any of the things that I have been explaining to you in this video, do leave me a comment down below and I'll get back to you guys with more details. So let's construct a few paragraphs, a few sentences and see how it goes. So we said we were going to claim that salary is the highest. It has seen an increment of 10%, and then it has covered half of the expenditure in 2020. So to do that in a sentence, we could say something like this. In 2010, salaries accounted for 40% of the total expenditure, which is expected to increase significantly by 10%, covering half of the budget by the year 2020. So now I managed to throw in a few of the words that we discussed here. Okay, from here, if I have to move on to the second sentence, I could say, on the other hand, comma, cleaning, comma, even though is expected to increase by 6%, in 2020 compared to mere 2% in 2010 is still expected to remain the lowest overhead among the other expenditures, or among all the expenditures. So by doing this, you've covered the highest, the lowest. You have definitely mentioned the main features of the diagram, and then one paragraph has been constructed. So in this paragraph now, if you think about how British Council checks your writing, you will see that we have delivered everything that they want. They want to see connectives every now and then, which we have done. They want to see non-mechanical writing, so to achieve that I've done this. They want to see main features, so I've obviously given them the highest and the lowest. And they want to see a comparative language, so obviously I've compared 2010 with 2020 in both the cases, and I'm also making sure highest and lowest are there. So all the requirements have basically been covered here. Moving on to the second paragraph, you could start by saying in the year 2010, both rent as well as security accounted for 15% each. So if you don't want to repeat accounted for here again, you could say both rent as well as security had a figure of 15% each, and it is expected that the former will decline by 4% in 2020, while a drop of 6% is estimated for the latter. So remember, I told you to use former latter when you have two things. So this is one of the ways you could construct that sentence. So the last sentence is going to be, in addition, taxes, even though it is expected to drop by 6% in 2020 from a count of 28% in 2010, is expected to retain the second highest position that it had in 2010. So by doing this, you've given them what they exactly were looking for. They wanted grammatical range and accuracy. They wanted coherence and cohesion. They wanted lexical resource, and they wanted task achievement. So when you are able to construct a writing like this, you are making sure that you are delivering exactly what is being asked of you. So that pretty much sums up my today's lesson. I hope you guys found it helpful. If you have any other problems that you would like me to explain to you, please leave a comment down below. I will get back to you guys with the solutions to your problems. And thank you very much for watching this video. Do join us again. Thank you.